I'm Amber Mitchell, 34, a professional photographer currently shooting cherry blossoms in Tokyo when my phone buzzed. A text from my brother Nathan. Sold the family beach house for $2 million. Thanks for being abroad. My stomach dropped. The Malibu beach house my grandfather left me 5 years ago. The place where I learned to swim, where I took my first photograph. My house. And somehow, Nathan had sold it? My hands trembled as I typed back, "What did you do?" Before I tell you how my own brother betrayed me while I was capturing cherry blossoms in Japan, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had family take advantage of you when you least expected it. The beach house in Malibu wasn't just any property, it was the backdrop to every significant childhood memory I have. My grandparents bought it in 1972, long before coastal property prices skyrocketed. It was modest by Malibu standards, 3 bedrooms, weathered blue siding, and a wraparound deck that creaked underfoot, but to us it was paradise. Nathan and I spent every summer there growing up. We'd wake at dawn, racing each other to the shoreline, our footprints disappearing in the wet sand. Mom would call us back for breakfast, and Grandpa Thomas would be flipping pancakes, his specialty. "Morning, sunshine," he'd say to me, sliding an extra blueberry onto my stack. Even then, I knew I was his favorite, though he tried to hide it. Nathan was 3 years older, always pushing boundaries. When I was 8, he convinced me to swim past the buoys, resulting in a dangerous riptide rescue. At 12, he borrowed Grandpa's fishing boat without permission, returning with a damaged hull. There was always an excuse, always forgiveness, always another chance. "Boys will be boys," Mom would say, while Dad nodded silently. My connection with Grandpa Thomas was different. He taught me to photograph the sunset with his old Nikon, explaining about golden hour light. "You've got an eye, Amber," he'd say, reviewing my shots. "You see things others miss." I still use that camera sometimes, despite all my professional equipment. When Grandpa passed away 5 years ago at 87, the family gathered at the beach house one last time before the will reading. Nathan paced the deck, talking about his plans for the place. "I'm thinking of converting the lower level into a rental unit," he said, gesturing grandly. "The income potential is insane." Mom smiled nervously. "Let's wait for the lawyer, honey." Rebecca Thompson, Grandpa's attorney for 40 years, arrived with a leather portfolio. We sat in the living room, the ocean visible through salt-crusted windows, as she cleared her throat. "Thomas was very specific about his wishes," she began. "To my granddaughter, Amber Mitchell, I leave my beach residence in Malibu, California, in recognition of her love for this place and her responsible nature." The silence was deafening. I felt all eyes turn to me as tears welled up. "That's it?" Nathan finally said. "She gets everything?" "There are financial provisions for everyone," Rebecca continued, "but yes, the property goes solely to Amber." Nathan's face darkened like storm clouds over the Pacific. "This is bullshit. I'm the oldest. I have a family to support." His family consisted of a series of girlfriends and his reckless spending habits. His restaurant venture had failed after 8 months. His tech startup never launched beyond a hastily created website. His investments mysteriously never matured. Mom placed a hand on his arm. "Nathan, please." "It's what Thomas wanted," Rebecca said firmly, handing me the deed with my name clearly printed. That night, Nathan didn't speak to me. He left early the next morning without saying goodbye. Over the next 5 years, my photography career blossomed. I specialized in nature and landscape photography, traveling to national parks, remote mountains, and eventually, international destinations. Magazine covers, gallery exhibitions, and commercial work provided a comfortable living. The beach house remained my sanctuary between assignments. Nathan's life took a different trajectory. He borrowed $50,000 from our parents for yet another business scheme selling luxury car accessories online. It collapsed within months. He convinced our sister Ashley to co-sign for a sports car he couldn't afford, which was repossessed a year later, damaging her credit. When he married Jenna, a dental hygienist who adored him, we thought he might stabilize. They divorced after 18 months, with Jenna citing his gambling and financial infidelity. Still, he was my brother. When he called asking for loans, I sometimes helped, smaller amounts I could afford to lose. When he accidentally used my credit card for a $700 online purchase, I chose to believe him. When he asked to host parties at the beach house, I reluctantly agreed, arriving afterward to broken glasses, cigarette burns on the furniture, and once a hole punched in the hallway wall. "You've always been so uptight," he'd say. "It's just stuff, Amber." But it wasn't just stuff. It was my grandfather's legacy. 3 months ago, National Geographic commissioned me to photograph Japan's cherry blossom season, a career-defining opportunity. 2 days before my departure, Nathan called. "Amber, my favorite sister," he began, though I was his only sister besides Ashley. "What do you need, Nathan?" I asked, packing equipment. "So cold. Can't I just call to wish you bon voyage?" "You can, but you usually don't." He laughed. "Fair enough. Look, I wanted to ask if I could use the beach house while you're gone. Jenna and I are talking again, and I want to show her I've changed." I thought she remarried. Details. It's different now. I'm different. I sighed. "Nathan, the last time." I know. I was a jerk. But I've been sober 3 months. Ask Mom. I hesitated. The house would be empty for 6 weeks. My neighbor Bradley had agreed to check on it weekly, but having someone there might deter break-ins. "No parties," I said firmly. "No friends staying over. Just you. And you're responsible for any damages." "Scout's honor," he replied, though he'd been kicked out of Boy Scouts for stealing from the troop fund. As I locked up the house the next morning, something felt wrong. Like I was making a mistake I couldn't yet see. I shook it off, blaming pre-trip anxiety, and headed to LAX. I had no idea it was the last time I'd see my beach house as mine. Japan was everything I'd hoped for and more. The cherry blossoms created ethereal tunnels of pale pink, transforming ordinary streets into something from a fairy tale. I worked 15-hour days, chasing the perfect light, the ideal composition, the fleeting moments when petals danced on the breeze. My guide and translator, Haruki Tanaka, became a friend, showing me hidden spots tourists never found. We'd end exhausting days with ramen and sake, comparing photography techniques and life philosophies. In another life, perhaps we could have been more than friends, but my focus remained on the assignment. "You Americans," he said one evening, "always rushing, never present." He gestured to other diners photographing their food. "They take pictures but don't see. You see first, then capture." I took it as the highest compliment. For weeks into my trip, I was in a remote village north of Tokyo, having hiked since dawn to photograph mountainside cherry trees. Cell service was spotty, but messages came through in bursts when I reached higher elevations. My phone buzzed with multiple notifications as I crested a hill. Nathan's text arrived first. "Sold the family beach house for $2 million. Thanks for being abroad. Split is fair. I'll wire your share after my investment pays off. Don't worry, it's going to make us both rich." My legs gave out. I sat hard on a boulder, reading and rereading the words. This couldn't be real. A prank, surely. A cruel joke. More messages followed. "By the way, buyer's already moving in. Nice family named Wilson. Dad's some big shot surgeon. You should thank me. Property taxes were killing you anyway. Call me when you can. Signal bad here, heading to Vegas for business meeting." My hands shook so badly I dropped the phone. Haruki found me there 10 minutes later, hyperventilating. "Amber-san? What's wrong?" I couldn't speak, just showed him the screen. "This is legal in America?" he asked, confusion evident. "No," I whispered. "It's not. I tried calling Nathan immediately. Straight to voicemail. I left increasingly desperate messages. Nathan, call me back now. This isn't funny. The house is in my name. What have you done? Call me. I texted our parents in Arizona. They knew nothing about any sale. I called my childhood friend Melissa, who lived nearby in Santa Monica. I'll drive by right now, she promised, audibly upset. 20 agonizing minutes later, she called back. Amber, there's a moving truck in the driveway. New people are definitely moving in. A woman and man with 2 kids. They seem normal. My mind raced through impossible scenarios. How could he have sold a house that wasn't his? What documents could he have possibly used? I called Rebecca Thompson, leaving an urgent message. It was the middle of the night in California, but she called back within the hour. This is extremely concerning, she said, her legal formality barely concealing her shock. I'll go to the county recorder's office when they open. In the meantime, I'm contacting the real estate board. Do you have any paperwork from the sale? Nothing. I didn't sell it. I understand. But Nathan must have provided something to the buyers. Deeds, transfer documents. My stomach twisted with sudden understanding. He had access to the house. All my papers were in the home office. Including the deed? I closed my eyes, remembering. In the filing cabinet. Second drawer. I'll handle this, Amber. But you should come home as soon as possible. National Geographic was surprisingly understanding when I explained the emergency. They arranged for a local photographer to complete the remaining shots, though it meant forfeiting a significant portion of my fee. Within 18 hours, I was on a plane back to the United States, my mind cycling through confusion, rage, and heart-wrenching betrayal. Somewhere over the Pacific, Nathan finally responded, "Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. You're never there anyway." I needed capital for a crypto opportunity that's going to 10x minimum. I'll buy you an even better place after. I typed back, hands trembling, "You committed fraud. This isn't about money. It's about trust." "Always so dramatic," he replied. "We can talk when you're calmer. By the way, I had to clean out some of your stuff. It's in storage, Unit 47 at Pacific Storage. Paid for 3 months. I turned off my phone, fighting nausea. The beach house contained irreplaceable items, Grandpa's cameras, family albums, my first professional prints. And the garden, he wouldn't have preserved the native plants Grandpa and I had tended for years. When the plane landed in Los Angeles, Rebecca was waiting. Her normally composed face showed strain. "I've confirmed it," she said, hugging me briefly. "The sale went through Coastal Dreams Realty. The agent is claiming everything was legitimate. Purchase price, $2.1 million to an orthopedic surgeon named Robert Wilson and his wife Grace." "How?" I asked, the single word containing all my confusion. "Forged documents, as far as I can tell." Nathan apparently had notarized paperwork showing power of attorney. "The signature looks convincingly like yours." "That's impossible." I know. We've already filed police reports for fraud and forgery. I've also put a legal hold on the funds, though most have already been transferred." "Where's Nathan now?" Rebecca's expression darkened. "According to your parents, he's networking with investors in Las Vegas." That meant one thing: gambling. "And the house?" "The Wilsons. That's complicated. They're innocent purchasers, as far as we can tell. They used their life savings and a mortgage. They have 2 children already enrolled in local schools." My head throbbed. Innocent people caught in Nathan's web. Children involved. The legal mess would be catastrophic. "I need to see it," I said. "The house. My house." Rebecca hesitated. "Amber, legally speaking, that might not be." "Please. I need to." She sighed, then nodded. "I'll drive you. But we can't go inside without permission. And prepare yourself. It may be difficult." Nothing could have prepared me for seeing moving boxes stacked on the deck where I'd spent thousands of sunsets. For watching unfamiliar children running across the sand I considered part of my home. for the physical pain of seeing strangers in my personal sanctuary. A woman noticed us watching from the road and approached cautiously. She was perhaps 40, with kind eyes and a concerned expression. "Can I help you?" she asked. "This is Amber Mitchell," Rebecca said professionally. "The homeowner." The woman's face crumpled in confusion. "I'm Grace Wilson. We purchased this house last week." From Nathan Mitchell. Our eyes met, and in that moment, I saw she was as much a victim as I was. "I think," I said carefully, "we need to talk." The conversation with Grace Wilson happened at a coffee shop down the street, neutral territory. Robert joined us halfway through, still wearing surgical scrubs from his hospital shift. Both looked increasingly devastated as Rebecca outlined the situation. "We sank everything into this," Robert said, running a hand through his hair. "Our retirement savings, college funds. We sold our home in Sacramento. Our son Tommy has autism," Grace added quietly. "The local school has an excellent program. He's already bonding with his new therapist." My anger at Nathan burned hotter with every word. This wasn't just about me anymore. He'd destroyed multiple lives with his fraud. "Our insurance won't cover this," Robert continued. "They specifically exclude fraud. Neither of you are at fault," Rebecca assured them. "But resolving this will take time. The legal owner is Amber, despite the fraudulent sale." Grace looked at me, eyes swimming with tears. "What happens to us now?" I had no answer. Meeting with Detective James Morris the next day clarified the scope of Nathan's crimes. The police had already pulled surveillance footage showing Nathan entering several notary offices with a young woman who resembled me enough from a distance. "We believe she presented herself as you, using a fake ID," Morris explained, showing me stills from the footage. "Your brother had all the necessary papers, deed, property tax statements. The notaries had no reason to suspect anything." The woman, Tiffany Schultz, small-time scammer with prior convictions for check fraud. "We're looking for her now." The real estate transaction had proceeded smoothly afterward. Nathan found a listing agent willing to expedite the process, likely with cash incentives. The Wilsons, relocating from Northern California, conducted most of their due diligence remotely. Everything appeared legitimate on paper. "And the money?" I asked. Morris sighed. "That's where it gets complicated. We've traced transfers to 3 offshore accounts, a $200,000 withdrawal in cash, and approximately $800,000 to various casino accounts in Las Vegas." "He's gambling it away," I said flatly. "Most likely. We have alerts at all major casinos. If he shows up, we'll know." The private investigator Rebecca hired delivered more disturbing news. Nathan had accumulated gambling debts exceeding $300,000 with some very dangerous people. His crypto investment opportunity was a transparent scam run by former cellmates of an associate. Everything pointed to a desperate man making increasingly reckless decisions. "These aren't people who accept excuses," the investigator warned. "They expect payment, one way or another." The family confrontation happened at my parents' condo in Palm Springs. My mother spent the first 20 minutes crying. My father sat stone-faced, occasionally shaking his head. My younger sister Ashley, always Nathan's defender, arrived late with arms crossed. "You always do this," she accused. "Turn everyone against him." "Ashley," Dad finally spoke, "your brother sold a house that wasn't his. That's not something Amber turned into anything." "He must have had his reasons," she insisted. "Maybe there was an agreement you forgot about, Amber. An agreement where I let him sell my house while I'm in another country? Without my signature? Without any communication?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "You never appreciated that house anyway. You're always traveling. It's my home. The only permanent address I have." Mom wiped her eyes. "Please, girls. This isn't helping." Dad cleared his throat. "Have you spoken directly to Nathan?" I shook my head. "He won't take my calls now that he knows I'm back." Just sends texts claiming he'll explain everything when his investment matures. He's always bounced back before, Mom said weakly. This isn't a failed business, Mom. It's felony fraud. Multiple counts. He's going to prison when they catch him. The gravity of the situation finally seemed to hit them. Ashley left in tears. Mom went to lie down. Dad poured himself a rare midday scotch. We failed him somehow, he said, staring into his glass. And now we failed you too. You didn't do this, Dad. Nathan did. His eyes met mine, suddenly clear and direct. Find him before the police do, Amber. Please. Give him one chance to make this right. I wanted to argue that Nathan had exhausted his chances years ago, but the plea in my father's eyes stopped me. Despite everything, they loved their son. And despite everything, some small part of me did too. I tried a different approach, texting Nathan. Dad's had a heart scare. Not telling Mom yet. Need to talk to you ASAP. The lie worked. He called within minutes. Is Dad okay? What happened? His voice held genuine concern. Dad's fine. But you won't be if you don't start talking. A pause. That's low, Amber. Even for you. Selling my house while I'm overseas is low, Nathan. Even for you. He sighed dramatically. It's not what you think. I had an opportunity. To commit fraud? To steal my inheritance? To destroy a family with children. The Wilsons? They're fine. They got a great deal, actually. And once my investment pays, there is no investment. The police know everything, Nathan. The fake ID for the notary. The offshore accounts. The casino withdrawals. Silence stretched between us. How bad is it? He finally asked, his voice smaller. Felony bad. Years in prison bad. I can fix this. I just need a little more time. The money's gone, isn't it? Another long pause. Not all of it. How much is left, Nathan? Honestly, about $80,000. My stomach dropped. From $2.1 million to $80,000 in under a month. Come back, I said. Bring what's left. Talk to Rebecca about making a deal. I can't. There are guys here. They're expecting payment. The police know about your gambling debts too. His sharp intake of breath told me he was genuinely scared. These aren't people you involve the police with, Amber. Then you're out of options. Turn yourself in or wait until they arrest you. Those are your choices now. There's always another option, he said, a desperate edge creeping into his voice. Always another play. Not this time. It's over, Nathan. He hung up without another word. I immediately called Detective Morris to report the conversation and my concern that Nathan might flee the country. Within hours, his name was on law enforcement watch lists at all borders and airports. 2 days later, while staying at a hotel near my former beach house, I received an unexpected call from Grace Wilson. We found something during renovations, she said. Something you should see. I arrived at the beach house 30 minutes later, my heart pounding as I walked up the familiar path. Grace met me at the door, her expression unreadable. Thank you for coming, she said. Robert's in the kitchen with the contractor. Following her through the living room was surreal. New furniture occupied spaces where mine had been. Different artwork hung on the walls. Children's toys lay scattered across the floor. Yet underneath these changes, the bones of my home remained. The kitchen was partially demolished. Cabinets had been removed, exposing bare studs and electrical wiring. Robert stood with a heavy-set man in work clothes, both looking at something in the wall. Amber, Robert nodded, his tone cautious, but not unfriendly. This is Tony, our contractor. Ma'am, Tony acknowledged. Never seen anything like this in 30 years of renovations. He gestured to what appeared to be a small safe embedded in the wall, previously hidden behind the cabinets. It wasn't a modern security safe, but an older model with a combination dial. We found it when we removed the old cabinetry, Grace explained. It doesn't belong to us, obviously. I moved closer, recognition dawning. My grandfather installed this. I'd forgotten all about it. Do you know the combination? Robert asked. I nodded slowly. His birthday, backwards. My fingers trembled slightly as I turned the dial. July 14th, 19. The mechanism clicked, and the door swung open. Inside lay a manila envelope, yellowed with age. I withdrew it carefully, feeling the weight of paper inside. The room fell silent as I opened the clasp. The first document was the original deed to the house, dated 1972, when my grandparents purchased it. Paperclipped to it was a newer deed, the one transferring ownership solely to me after grandfather's death. My name was the only one listed. Beneath these was a handwritten letter on my grandfather's personalized stationery. His distinctive penmanship brought tears to my eyes immediately. My dearest Amber, it began. I had to pause, collecting myself before continuing. If you're reading this, you found my hiding place. Good girl. Always the clever one. I've left this house to you, and you alone for reasons I may not have fully explained. While I love all my grandchildren, you are the only one who truly loves this place for what it is, not for its monetary value or status, but for its soul. Nathan has always seen it as an asset to be leveraged. You see it as a home. I've watched you grow into a remarkable young woman, responsible and thoughtful. I've also watched Nathan struggle with impulse control and financial responsibility. I fear leaving him any portion of this property would result in its quick sale and the money's quicker disappearance. In the event that Nathan ever contests your ownership or attempts to claim the property, this letter and the enclosed documents confirm my explicit wishes. I've also included a legal acknowledgement signed by Nathan 3 years ago, when he approached me for a loan. He specifically recognized your eventual sole ownership in exchange for that financial assistance. Protect this place, Amber. The garden especially. Your grandmother's spirit lives in those native plants. All my love, always. Grandpa Thomas. I couldn't speak. Tears flowed freely as I handed the letter to Rebecca, who had arrived shortly after me. She read it quickly, then reached for the remaining document, a notarized statement with Nathan's unmistakable signature acknowledging that in consideration of financial assistance provided, I recognize and accept that the Malibu property will pass solely to Amber Mitchell upon Thomas Mitchell's death. This is extremely significant, Rebecca said. Nathan not only knew he had no claim to the property, he explicitly acknowledged your ownership in a legal document. Which makes the fraud even more deliberate, I said, wiping my eyes. Grace was crying too. Your grandfather sounds like a wonderful man. He was. There was more in the safe, family photos I'd never seen, including one of 4-year-old me and Grandpa building a sandcastle. A small pouch contained my grandmother's wedding ring. A pressed flower from the garden, preserved between wax paper. Treasures he'd wanted me to have. Robert cleared his throat awkwardly. I know this is a difficult situation for everyone, but these documents essentially confirm what we already knew. The sale was fraudulent. The house legally belongs to Amber. I looked at the Wilson family. Grace's reddened eyes, Robert's tired face, their children's artwork already displayed on the refrigerator. Tommy had lined up his toy cars in perfect rows on the windowsill, a place he'd claimed as his own. I need some time, I said finally. This is a lot to process. Of course, Grace nodded. We understand. As I turned to leave, their younger child, a girl about 7, appeared in the doorway. She looked at me curiously. Are you the lady who used to live here? She asked. Emma, honey, not now, Grace said gently. It's okay, I assured her. Yes, I am. I like your treehouse, Emma said. Daddy says we can fix it up. The treehouse. Another memory. Grandpa and Dad building it when I was 9. Nathan had fallen from it and broken his arm, showing off for friends. I hope you enjoy it, I said, my voice catching. Outside, standing on the beach I'd grown up on, I called Detective Morris. We've found new evidence, I said. Proof that Nathan knew exactly what he was doing. Good timing, Morris replied. We just got a hit on his credit card. Tried to buy a plane ticket to Mexico. Airport police are picking him up now. Nathan's arrest made local news. Local photographer's beach house fraudulently sold by brother read the headline in the Malibu Times. The accompanying photo showed Nathan in handcuffs, being led from LAX by airport police. His expression was one I'd never seen before. Not anger or defiance, but fear. The district attorney, Margaret Franklin, was a no-nonsense prosecutor with political ambitions and a perfect record with fraud cases. She reviewed the evidence and didn't mince words. "This is as clear-cut as it gets," she told Rebecca and me during our initial meeting. "Forgery, fraud, grand theft, identity theft, money laundering. We're looking at multiple felony counts." "What kind of sentence are we talking about?" I asked. "Given the amount involved and the deliberate nature of the crimes, 5 to 7 years is likely. Less with a plea deal, which I'm not inclined to offer unless he provides substantial cooperation." "Cooperation with what?" "We have reason to believe your brother was working with others. This level of sophisticated fraud usually involves a network." I thought of Tiffany Schultz, the woman who had impersonated me at the notary offices. Who else might be involved? Nathan's initial court appearance was brief and somber. He wore an orange jumpsuit, his normally styled hair flat and unwashed. He barely looked at me sitting in the gallery. His court-appointed attorney entered a not guilty plea, and bail was set at $1 million, an impossible sum given his financial state. The family was shattered. Mom couldn't stop crying long enough to attend the arraignment. Dad looked 10 years older overnight. Ashley finally seemed to understand the gravity of the situation after seeing Nathan in custody. "Did you know?" I asked her as we left the courthouse. "Did you have any idea what he was planning?" "No," she said, looking stricken. "He told me he was helping you sell the place because you were considering moving to Japan permanently." I believed him. We all had, in different ways, wanted to believe the best of Nathan. It was a pattern stretching back to childhood. Nathan does something terrible. The family makes excuses. Nathan is forgiven. Rinse and repeat. But this cycle couldn't continue. I finally visited him in jail 2 weeks after his arrest. The visiting room was nothing like the comfortable family meetings shown on TV. Hard plastic chairs, a scratched plexiglass divider, tinny speakers that distorted his voice. "You look terrible," were his first words to me. "You're one to talk." He attempted his charming smile, but it faltered. "Look, I know you're angry." "Angry doesn't begin to cover it, Nathan. You stole my house. You forged my signature. You sold my home to an innocent family with children. You violated every possible trust." I was desperate, Amber. "These guys in Vegas, they were threatening me. My kneecaps, my fingers. They're connected to serious people." "So you sacrificed me instead?" He had the decency to look away. "I was going to fix it." The investment opportunity was real. Cryptocurrency backed by rare earth minerals. Triple returns within 6 months. It was a scam, Nathan. Like every get-rich-quick scheme you've ever fallen for. You don't know that. The FBI does. They've arrested the promoters. It was a standard Ponzi scheme. His face crumpled. God, I'm such an idiot. For once, I didn't disagree. "Why did you sign that acknowledgement for Grandpa?" I asked. "The one saying you recognized the house would be mine?" He looked confused. "What acknowledgement?" "In the wall safe. The notarized document you signed when Grandpa gave you that loan 3 years ago." Recognition dawned in his eyes. "That old thing? I needed 50 grand for the restaurant renovations. I'd have signed anything. Didn't think it mattered. Figured I could contest the will anyway when the time came." His casual admission of planning to contest our grandfather's will, even back then, stunned me into silence. "So what happens now?" he finally asked. "You're looking at serious prison time, Nathan. Years. Can't you drop the charges? Tell them you changed your mind about the house." I stared at him, incredulous. "It doesn't work that way. This isn't a misunderstanding between siblings. You committed multiple felonies. The DA is prosecuting you, not me. But if you forgave me, I don't forgive you. I'm not sure I ever will. His eyes welled with tears, real ones, not the performative emotion he usually deployed. I'm scared, Amber. I'm not built for prison. For a moment, I saw the little boy who'd crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, claiming he was only there to comfort me. Despite everything, a part of my heart ached for him. Cooperate with the investigation, I said. Tell them everything. It's your only chance for leniency. And then what? When I get out eventually. I stood up, signaling the end of our visit. Then you get to rebuild your life, just like the Wilsons and I are having to do now. The case moved faster than expected. Nathan, facing overwhelming evidence and persuaded by his new, more experienced attorney, agreed to a plea deal. He provided information about Tiffany Schultz and 2 other accomplices who had helped with document preparation and offshore banking connections. In exchange, he received a 5-year sentence with possibility of parole after 3 years, plus restitution requirements that would follow him long after his release. The sentencing hearing was painful. Judge Catherine Rivera listened to the prosecutor outline Nathan's crimes in clinical detail. She reviewed his previous brushes with the law, minor charges that had been dismissed or pleaded down to misdemeanors through family connections and expensive attorneys. Mr. Mitchell, she said, fixing him with a penetrating stare, your sister's victim impact statement describes a lifetime of second chances. It appears you've interpreted each chance not as an opportunity for growth, but as tacit permission to escalate your behavior. Nathan stood with head bowed, a posture I'd never associated with my confident, borderline arrogant brother. The breach of trust here is extraordinary, Judge Rivera continued. Family homes hold our most sacred memories. They are not ATMs to be emptied on a whim. Your actions have caused incalculable emotional damage, quite apart from the financial implications. She accepted the plea agreement, but added additional conditions. Mandatory gambling addiction treatment during incarceration, financial literacy courses, and extended probation supervision upon release. As he was led away, Nathan looked back at me one last time. In his eyes, I saw something new, genuine remorse, perhaps. Or maybe just the recognition that his actions had finally caught up with him. Outside the courthouse, reporters thrust microphones toward me. How does it feel to see your brother sentenced? Will you be able to reclaim your beach house? Are you planning to sue the real estate company that handled the fraudulent sale? I pushed past them without comment. There were no winners here, only varying degrees of loss. The legal aftermath was complicated. While Nathan's criminal case concluded relatively quickly, the civil matters remained. The Wilsons had purchased the house in good faith, paying market value. Their life savings were tied up in a property they legally couldn't own. Their insurance company denied their claim, citing exclusions for fraud. The real estate agency that handled the transaction declared bankruptcy almost immediately, its owner vanishing overnight. The escrow company offered a partial settlement, admitting failure in their verification procedures. Robert and Grace Wilson were devastated financially and emotionally. They had 2 children settled in new schools, jobs in the area, and nowhere to go if they lost the house. I surprised myself by suggesting coffee with Grace a few weeks after Nathan's sentencing. We met at the same beachside cafe as before, but the dynamic had shifted. We were no longer adversaries on opposite sides of a legal battle, just 2 women caught in someone else's misdeed. Tommy's therapist says changing schools again would be devastating for him, Grace said, stirring her latte absently. He's finally making connections here. How's Emma adjusting? I asked. A small smile. She loves being a beach kid. Takes her bucket to collect shells every morning before school. Just as I had at her age. And Robert? Working double shifts to cover the legal fees. We've had to withdraw from our retirement accounts, with penalties. She looked up, eyes tired but determined. We're not giving up. We'll fight for this house. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but it doesn't, I assured her. I understand. And surprisingly, I did. In their short time there, the Wilsons had already infused the house with their own love, their own memories. They appreciated it for exactly what it was, not a valuable asset, but a home. "Tell me about your work," Grace said, changing the subject. "Robert looked up your photography online. It's extraordinary." We talked for over 2 hours. Grace was a marine biologist who'd stepped back from her career to focus on Tommy's needs. She had a wickedly funny sense of humor and a passion for ocean conservation. She'd been planning to restart local research now that they lived on the beach. As we parted, she hesitated. "This is probably inappropriate given everything, but would you like to come for dinner sometime? See what we've done with the place." The invitation caught me off guard. "Are you sure that wouldn't be strange?" "Extremely strange," she laughed. "But I think we could both use more friends right now." 3 days later, I found myself back at the beach house, this time as a guest. Robert grilled fresh fish on the deck. Emma proudly showed me her shell collection. Tommy, after initial shyness, demonstrated how he'd organized his toy cars by color in the window alcove. They had preserved more of the house's character than I'd expected. The original hardwood floors remained, though refinished. The built-in bookshelves still held books, now their titles instead of mine. The kitchen renovation had been paused after finding the safe, but their plans included keeping the vintage blue tiles my grandmother had installed. "We fell in love with the soul of this place," Robert explained, pouring wine as we watched the sunset from the deck. "New construction feels so sterile. This house has history." "My grandfather would have approved," I said honestly. He hated the mega mansions taking over the coastline. After dinner, Grace hesitantly raised the topic we'd been avoiding. "Our attorney says we could be in litigation for years," she said. "Even if we win, the legal fees would cripple us." Robert nodded grimly. "We've discussed selling and cutting our losses, but the title issues make that impossible right now." I took a deep breath, voicing the idea that had been forming since our coffee meeting. What if we made a deal directly? No attorneys, no courts. They exchanged confused glances. "What kind of deal?" Robert asked cautiously. "A legitimate sale. From me to you. At the price you already paid, minus your legal expenses so far." Grace's eyes widened. "But you could get much more on the open market." "Probably. But then I'd have to wait out the legal process, pay my own attorney fees, deal with the emotional toll of a prolonged fight, and eventually sell to strangers." I sipped my wine. "This way, the house goes to people who actually love it." "There would be conditions," I continued. "My grandfather's native plant garden stays protected. I get visitation rights to the treehouse." This last bit made Emma giggle. "And maybe occasional sunset photography from your deck?" "You're serious," Robert said, studying my face. "I've had a lot of time to think about what this house really means to me. The memories don't disappear if I no longer own the walls. And watching your family here, it feels right somehow." Grace was crying now. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll consider it. Talk it over." There would be proper paperwork this time, through Rebecca's office. 2 weeks later, we met at Rebecca's law firm to sign the transfer documents. Everything was meticulously legal, my clear signature on every page, notarized by Rebecca's trusted associate, every disclosure form properly executed. As I handed over the keys, the real ones this time, not the copies Nathan had used, Grace hugged me tightly. "We'll honor this place," she whispered. "I promise." "I know you will." Robert shook my hand, then surprised me by pulling me into a hug as well. "Our door is always open to you." Always. Their children had made thank you cards. Emma's featured a colorful drawing of the house with a rainbow overhead. Tommy's showed remarkable attention to detail, with perfect renderings of the windows and doors, labeled neatly in his careful handwriting. Before leaving, I asked for one last walkthrough alone. Grace understood immediately. "Take all the time you need." I moved through each room slowly, touching door frames, window latches, the banister Grandpa had carved by hand. I took photographs, not artistic ones for exhibition, but personal snapshots to preserve what was passing from my life. In the garden, I knelt beside the native sage and manzanita grandpa and I had planted together. "I think you'd approve," I whispered to his memory. "They'll take good care of your special place." As I prepared to leave, I noticed Grace watching respectfully from a distance. "The garden," she said, approaching cautiously. "I've been researching native plant conservation. With your permission, I'd like to expand it. Create a proper coastal sage scrub habitat. It's disappearing so quickly from developed areas." I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. He would have loved that. 6 months passed in a blur of change and adjustment. The settlement money, significantly less than what the house was worth, but substantial nonetheless, allowed me to purchase a small apartment in San Francisco's Mission District. The lower level I converted into a photography studio where I could work between assignments and teach occasional workshops. My Japan cherry blossom collection, completed by my replacement photographer but curated by me, won National Geographic's annual photography award. The irony wasn't lost on me. The assignment I'd abandoned had become my greatest professional success. Therapy helped me process the complicated emotions surrounding Nathan's betrayal. Dr. Lin specialized in family trauma and helped me understand that forgiveness wasn't an obligation, but a personal choice that couldn't be rushed. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing someone back into a position where they can hurt you again, she explained. It means releasing yourself from the burden of anger. I visited Nathan monthly at the medium security facility where he was serving his sentence. Our conversations were strained at first, filled with his justifications and my lingering resentment. Gradually, something shifted. The prison's mandatory gambling addiction program seemed to be working. He spoke about his triggers, his distorted thinking patterns, the rush that came with risk. I never saw what it was doing to everyone else, he admitted during my 3rd visit. I was so focused on the next win, the big score that would fix everything. "Did you ever win?" I asked, genuinely curious. A rueful smile. "Sometimes. But never enough. A win just meant I could play longer, bet bigger." By the 6th month, he was leading addiction support groups for other inmates. His counselor reported significant progress. Nathan had even begun making restitution plans for his eventual release, starting with small payments from his prison job earnings. "I know I'll never be able to repay everything," he told me, "but I need to try." Family dynamics slowly recalibrated. Mom and Dad attended counseling to address their enabling patterns. Dad's health improved once he stopped carrying Nathan's secrets. Mom found a support group for parents of adult children with addiction issues. Ashley and I reached a fragile reconciliation over lunch in Venice Beach. "I always thought you had it so easy," she confessed. Grandpa's favorite, the golden child with the perfect career and the beach house. "I never saw how much pressure that put on you, being the responsible one. And I never understood how hard it was living in Nathan's shadow," I replied. "He took up so much emotional space in the family." For Thanksgiving, we gathered at my parents' condo, a smaller group without Nathan, but perhaps a healthier one. We avoided speaking about him at first, creating awkward silences, until Dad raised his glass. "To absent family," he said simply. "May they find their way back to themselves." It was enough. We ate, we reminisced, we began healing. The Wilsons sent regular updates. Tommy had joined a special surf therapy program for children with autism. Emma had won a school science fair with her project on native coastal plants. Grace was consulting on a marine conservation initiative. Robert had reduced his hours to spend more time with the family. Their Christmas card showed them on the deck, sunset painting the sky behind them. "Thank you for our forever home," Grace had written inside. I visited occasionally, always calling ahead. Each time, the house felt less like my lost possession and more like a friend's home where I was welcome. The garden expanded under Grace's careful stewardship, becoming a showcase of coastal native species that would have made Grandpa proud. My own life expanded in unexpected ways. The studio attracted a community of artists and photographers. I started a foundation providing arts education for underprivileged youth. A series of speaking engagements about financial fraud awareness led to a book contract. And then there was Martin, the architect I met at a gallery opening featuring my coastal landscapes. He designed sustainable buildings that worked with natural environments rather than against them. Our connection was immediate and uncomplicated, a refreshing change from the drama I'd grown accustomed to. "You carry your home within you," he said once, looking at my photographs of beaches from around the world. "That's rare." 6 months to the day after signing over the beach house, I returned to the shoreline near my former home. The Wilsons were away visiting relatives, so I had the beach to myself. The February air was crisp, the winter light perfect for photography. I set up my tripod at the water's edge, the same spot where Grandpa had first taught me about exposure and composition. As I adjusted my settings, I noticed a small figure watching from the public beach access path. Emma Wilson, bundled in a red jacket, waved enthusiastically when she saw me looking. "We just got back," she called, running toward me. "Did you come to take pictures of our house?" "Just the ocean today," I smiled. "Mom's making hot chocolate. She said to invite you up if we saw you." Looking at this child, so at home in the place I once called mine, I felt the final piece settle into place. The beach house had served its purpose in my life, sheltering my childhood, nurturing my artistic eye, connecting me to my grandfather, and ultimately teaching me that home wasn't about ownership, but about belonging. "Hot chocolate sounds perfect," I said, packing up my equipment. As we walked up the familiar path, Emma chattering about school and shells and her new puppy, I realized that despite everything, or perhaps because of it, I had found my way to exactly where I needed to be. I'd love to hear if any of you have ever experienced betrayal from family members, especially involving property or inheritance. Have you found a way to forgive, or do you believe some actions are unforgivable? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Remember, sometimes our greatest growth comes from our deepest wounds. Thank you for listening to my story today.